Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fit Foodie Film Takes. This is your host, your girl, Fit Foodie, with your other girl, Miss Henrietta. Say hi, Henrietta. And yes, in today's video, we're talking about The Sound of Metal. When I say I love this movie, it touches me. So if I get emotional throughout this video, don't mind me. I'm a Pisces moon. I'm a little bit of a crybaby. It's one of the best films. Here on my channel, I talk about different films that I like and I analyze different aspects of the film that I personally find interesting. So if you have not watched this film, I sincerely suggest you pause this video, go ahead and watch it and come back. Or if you just want to hear my nuanced take on this film and then watch it after, welcome. Just some warning, there will be some spoilers. In today's video, I'm going to specifically be talking about death and rebirth. So go ahead, grab some water, grab your snacks, grab your peace, and let's get into it. Sound of Metal is a 2019 American drama film directed by Darius Martyr, who co-wrote the story with Derek Cianfrance. I hope I said that right. Derek Cianfrance before co-writing the screenplay with his brother Abraham Martyr. It stars Riz Ahmed as a metal drummer who loses his hearing. The cast also includes Olivia Cooke, Paul Raci, Lauren Ridloff, and Matthew Almeric. Now, one thing that I really enjoy about this film, oddly enough, is that there are no villains. Not at all. There's no antagonist or someone to root against. Instead, this movie gives you a glimpse of how life can truly unfold. Suddenly, without warning, how things can just happen to you and how that pushes us to make certain choices in life. I also like how it emphasizes how disability is not exactly a death sentence. If any way, disability shows how we can be a different way of being, of living, of existing. So I broke up this video into 3 parts, 3 different arcs that I found in the film and the takeaways that I took from each arc. Part 1, Old Life, Processing Pain. So starting off, Riz Ahmed plays Ruben, Olivia Cooke plays his girlfriend Lou, and they're both recovering addicts. They've been in recovery for 4 years. They actually met in treatment, and I will touch on how that is problematic in a moment. Lou is originally from France. Her mother took her when she was young, left the father, and I'll talk about that in a moment as well. And I guess when she took her away to America, she had her own mental issues and unalived herself, which causes a lot of trauma for Lou, and also having her growing up having a disdain or a hatred for her father. Ruben, on the other hand, never really knew his father. He touches on how his mother was a military nurse and traveled all over the place, which shows an instability there. And then also not having a male parental figure in the home. And as you watch through the film, you'll see that Ruben and Lou are the poster children for codependency. Even though they're clean, even though they have a living arrangement in their RV, even though they're working being creatives, that is not a healthy environment that they're in. And even though they're clean for whatever their drug of choice is, they're ultimately addicted to one another. We start the film with them being on tour, again, traveling in their RV. They're into the heavy metal rock scene, very much alternative. And I think music is actually one of the best ways to release, like any other creative method, to release pain, anger, emotions. You can feel through their lyrics, through their sound. There's a lot of pent up trauma within. Another aspect I want to touch on is the fact that I wouldn't say that they're broke, but they're not stable. They travel from place to place in their RV, and I'm sure they scraped up money some kind of way, but they're not well off financially. And because of that, they rely heavily on each other for their happiness and their success. I feel like, especially for Ruben, Lou is his entire world, and putting that on a partner is not fair nor healthy. So we see when Ruben is performing, going on the drums, that he loses his hearing, which of course is life-changing and traumatic, especially because he is a musician. Lou, not knowing what to do, she's supportive of him, calling his sponsor, making sure that Ruben is in okay space so he doesn't try to relapse, which again is another form of codependency. It's always okay to make sure, especially if you're in a long-standing relationship, to take care of your partner, but it's ultimately Ruben's decision to stay clean. That shouldn't have to be placed on her. Again, another stressor for his girlfriend. He, as a man, as an adult, should be able to make those decisions for himself. But also, mind you, he is deaf. So I'm mindful of that as well. He can't really communicate with anyone else. So Ruben's sponsor was able to find a deaf community that's also a refuge for those who have been addicts and are recovering. Lou ultimately makes the choice to leave Ruben so he can learn sign language and get his life figured out on his own without her. I think ultimately Lou depended on Ruben. You can tell she loves Ruben, but he puts a lot on her. Speaking just from a woman's perspective, even though this is about Ruben, women in relationships with men, it's taxing on us. There's a lot of emotional, physical, mental labor that we pour into relationships as it is. And then also dealing with her own trauma, her own issues, her own addictions, her trying to or attempt to commit, in dealing with a man who's also an addict. Lou ultimately wanted what was best for Ruben, but I think also she was ready to have a break. After 4 years, that's a long time. I think she was ready to find something new and different and relieve her of her stress. Which also they show physically her being stressed out by scratching. She will scratch herself because that's how she physically expresses it versus verbal. Because I don't even know if she's fully aware of it. Part 2. Deaf Life. Losing yourself and discovering a new path. So one of the things that I enjoyed about this film is because I learned something new. I've never had a family member deal with any kind of physical addiction like drugs, alcohol, different things like that. Everything that I've learned about addiction has been through school when I got my degree in psychology or watching Intervention. And I really enjoyed learning about the intersectionality of having a deaf community that also helps those with addictions. And one thing that I learned from Intervention, and even on a different level, my 600-pound life, is that it's so key when you're dealing with any kind of addiction, no matter the substance, to disconnect from people, places, and things that enable those behaviors, and how that can be a great start to recovery. And so Ruben is accepted into this community. Joe, who is my most favoriteest character, I love his acting in this movie. Getting ahead of myself. He basically gets him in there, shows him the ropes. He takes his cell phone, so he has no contact with the outside world, which is needed, and also the keys to his RV. He is now planting himself in this community. And what the movie does really well is showing how confused Ruben is, because again, he doesn't know sign language. He doesn't know these people, and how uncomfortable and uncertain he is. The filming of it, watching his facial expressions, there's no subtitles. So we're experiencing exactly what he's experiencing. And it shows us how we learn with him. And it's been one of my biggest goals to learn sign language anyway, because I think that's so important to connect with people. And so I learned some signing for myself. Not a professional, but I'm learning. And I think it shows a special rawness of how it feels to be in something new. New situations are scary. I don't care who you are. It's because you don't know what to expect. You don't know the people. You probably don't know the place, especially when you're there because you've lost something that's a part of one of your senses. Hearing, that's a lot. That's overwhelming, especially when you're uncomfortable with being by yourself in silence. Because what does that mean to be by yourself with silence? That means that you're sitting with yourself. You have to face yourself. And people who are avoidant, aka those with addictions, and I've been there. I have dealt with food addiction. It's not a real fun place to be in the beginning. And I think in our culture, it definitely emphasizes how sound in modern times has been used in a way to comfort us. Having background noise, listening to music, watching this YouTube channel while you clean or do other things. Another thing that I love that they contrasted here is that Ruben lost Lou. Lou was now out of his life. But what did Ruben gain? He gained a community, because before, Lou was his only community. He had one person to rely and depend on for all his wants and needs. Now he's living with other adults around his age, some younger, some older. He's working with the kids at the school to learn sign language. We see how his world has now opened up due to his loss of hearing. And I think that is so important as well, because I know when I dealt with my food addiction, I made sure that that was a solitary activity. I was isolated. I was ashamed. I ate and ate and ate to feel something inside, or to numb myself, or to do something to not deal with what I was feeling within. And so getting outside of yourself and focusing on other things, like the community that you create. Community is so important. The community that you create on trust and respect and eventually love, that's valuable. That helps keep you out of those isolating and addictive behaviors. And we see Ruben, learning something new, especially when you didn't want to learn it in the first place, you kind of feel forced to relearn a new part of your life. It's not easy. It's humbling. And we can see how hard it is for him to be open to that change. And one thing that I love, one particular scene, is you see Ruben fixing the eaves or something on the roof. And Joe grabs him and it says, like, come here. Come on. Because one, Joe never asked Ruben to fix his roof. And two, you really should ask someone before doing any type of maintenance in someone's home. So respect, but also that defeats the purpose of the program, which Ruben doesn't quite understand yet. So Joe basically tells Ruben, I don't need you to fix anything here. All I need you to do is what? He gave him a task. He said, wake up early in the morning, I'll fix you some coffee. He gave him a donut. He says, I'm going to put you in my study where I just want you to sit. And Ruben's like, how's that a task? And Joe's like, look, and if you can't sit, I want you to write. No drawing, write. No one's going to read what you're writing. Doesn't matter what you write, the spelling. I just want you to write. Then he says, and if you have issues with sitting or with writing, Ruben, come and find me, because he'll be writing too. So to those on the outside, we think, how hard can that be, right? Difficult. And that's the thing, the exercise seems simple. It seems too simple. It seems ridiculous. But when was the last time that you took your time? No music, no stimulation. You just sat down and just sat. I know for me, laying in bed doesn't count, but I don't typically do that. A lot of people would call that meditation. And it's key because you can tell with this acting that Joe has been exactly where Ruben was. So he knows what this will do for him and how that helps Joe himself. So Ruben gets up in the morning, grabs his coffee, grabs his donut, and can he sit? No. The sight of a chair and a table with a notepad and a pen on it makes him lose his shit. Beating up the donut, just acting a fool, standing up. He gets aggressive. Why do you think that is? And then we see some time pass. You see Ruben connecting with the people in the group home he's in. You see him connecting with the children. We see him signing and understanding, and we see subtitles. And we see him smiling a lot. The only time we saw him smile before he came to this place was when he looked at Lou. But he seems like he's having a fun time connecting with different people who see him on his level. And we see him from being shut down to shut off to connecting, showing his talents, doing tattoos, teaching the kids how to drum. He just seems like he's good with people. And then Joe, seeing his progress, he wants to talk to Ruben. He wants to have a heart-to-heart, one-on-one with him. And he talks to him about the future. Basically, he's telling Ruben, we all like you. We enjoy you in your space, and we think that you're essential to this community. And he would like Ruben to stay, maybe not in the same home, but to find a way to work, to make money, to stay in the same place, work with Joe, and then also work with the kids at school. And you can see how Joe has been touched by Ruben's existence in his life. You just feel that. But then we see Ruben, he's at a crossroads now. Because he originally came here to go learn what he needs to do to get back on his feet, to make sure he stays sober, so he can do what? Go back and be with Lou and do the same thing over and over and over again. And so Ruben has a choice to move forward with the new life he has created or to return back to the old life with Lou. Part 3. resurrecting the old life, mourning and accepting rebirth. So as soon as he has that conversation, what does he do? He decides to check on his girlfriend on the computer, sees that she's out there making music by himself, and it causes a panic. Ruben goes back to his RV and begins playing his drums. You know what? Now that I think about it, I think after he saw Lou performing music by herself, it made him feel like he was not needed or wanted by her side, that she can do that on her own. And so I think him going back to the RV and playing the drums, that proved to himself that he has worth, that he can bring something to the table even though he's deaf. Then we see he gets one of his housemates to try to sell the items in the RV to get some extra money, and he emphasizes that this is all for Lou. He's getting money for her. Even though I think he means that genuinely, that's not the case. Nothing he's doing in this part, and we'll touch on that in a second, was about Lou. It was about himself. But he needed someone to hold on to rationalize his decisions. You know what I mean? But we see a change when Ruben came to this community and we see him evolve over time. There was a peace, there was a calm. We see him finally be able to sit and to write and to do that more and more often. Now the energy is chaotic. We went from calm and collected and easy to erratic and explosive, and him being sneaky. And one thing about sneakiness, there's nothing good. If you have to do things behind people's backs, lie, trying to shift things around, you're not in a healthy or good place. And he even goes out and he sells his RV. He makes a deal with the guy he's selling his RV with, that if he comes back 6 weeks later, he can come and reclaim it, and he sells it for a chunk of money. So now he has all this money for what? So he can get surgery to get his hearing back. And that's something I didn't touch on in the beginning of the movie, but he wanted to get his hearing fixed, but it costs like what, 40 grand out of pocket, because of course the American healthcare system, why would they want to help its people? So of course he couldn't afford it at the time, but now he can. He calls up the people who can do the surgery. He leaves a note for Joe. He goes off and he gets the surgery done. Get a cochlear implant. So after Ruben wakes up from his procedure, the doctor writes to him that, you're not going to hear anything, you're totally deaf now, and that you need to come back in 4 weeks to get everything activated so the implants can work and the whole process. So Ruben comes back, he sees Joe, he sits with him, and he tells him that he did the deed. And Joe's like, "What are you talking about?" And he admits that he got the surgery. When Joe asks, "What did you do for the money?" Because that's a lot of money that you needed, which is concerning, Ruben says, "I sold everything. I sold the RV. I sold everything inside. That's how I got the money to do this." And you could just see at Joe's face how that just breaks his heart. And the one thing that I like about Joe is the fact that he has been through his things. He was in the Vietnam War. His addiction was being an alcoholic. He said he lost his hearing in the Vietnam War, but he lost everything in his life because of his addiction. Not because he was deaf, but because of the choices he's made to medicate and not face the person he was within. You can tell that when Ruben said that, it just broke his heart. And then Ruben just goes on explaining and explaining. He's saving his life. Time is passing. How no one cares whether he lives or dies. Like talking about his worth, just going on and on and on. Talk, 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 talk. And Joe had to talk to him again about stillness.
I wonder, all these mornings you've been sitting in my study, sitting, have you had any moments of stillness? Because you're right, Ruben. The world does keep moving. It can be a damn cruel place. But for me, those moments of stillness, that place, that's the kingdom of God.
And no matter how much it hurts Joe, Joe recognizes and respects the fact that Ruben has made a decision. He made a choice, and his choice wasn't to continue on with the community, but it was to go back to his old life or attempt to. And instead of Ruben coming and talking to Joe to express these feelings and to talk it out, because I think Ruben knew deep down inside if he had that conversation, Joe would talk him into it. And not like Joe would manipulate him in any way, but Ruben knew that that community was good for him. But Ruben didn't want to listen to reason. He wanted to listen to fear. Then Ruben asked Joe for money. He's like, can you loan me some money so I can get on a plane and also to get my RV back? Again, that's like, I don't know how much RVs are, but I know that's more than 10, 20 grand. So thousands of dollars, which is totally inappropriate to ask. Because I think Joe at this point is like his sponsor. And Joe, being the real man that he is, he's very clear with Ruben. He says, you look and you sound like an addict right now. Again, Ruben going back to old behaviors. Behaviors I'm sure Joe is very familiar with within himself and with others he's worked with. And something that I just want to emphasize that I love, because Ruben asked to stay in the community for 4 weeks. Joe has to clarify that being deaf is not a handicap. That's not something to fix. They've already dealt with that being in the outside world, which is why their community is so important and essential. And so Joe sets his boundaries, which are so important, because with boundaries, there's trust, there's respect. And with everything that Ruben did, not even talking to Joe, he violated that trust. He violated that respect. And so Joe, with tears in his eyes, tells Ruben that you have to pack up your stuff today and go. And that's the last that we see of my man Joe. I'm sorry, this movie really gets to me. I just don't like how it ended where we see him sad. It just feels unresolved. But Joe's gonna be fine. He knows who he is, he knows what he's doing, and he's working on himself every day. Hard work. Respect to that man. Then we see Ruben down and out. He somehow made money to get some type of motel, and we see him shave his hair, which represents so many things: a new start, a different view of yourself, release of the old. I have short hair, and when I tell you the past couple of years where I went through a lot of struggles, anytime I felt any type of emotional attachment that I wanted to release, I would just shave my head and feel better. So this represents a lot. This is a change. And then over the next 4 weeks, we see Ruben become more isolated than he was before. More isolated when he had Lou than when he had his community. It's just him smoking cigarettes, trying to cope, waiting. It was painful to see the waiting of this man, anxious waiting. And this part of the film confuses me because it's not explained that well, because I don't know if Ruben just didn't ask the questions needed, which he probably didn't. Again, I feel like if Lou was still in the picture, that's something things Lou would have asked for him. But again, he's a grown man. He should be able to inquire on things, especially medical procedures that cost thousands of dollars. I don't know if that's on the staff, the doctors, to lay it out and explain things to their patients. But when he gets the activation, he gets the cochlear implants on, it doesn't sound good. Mind you, the purpose of all this is to hear, so he can hear things, but it's not like what he's used to. And the doctor explains to him that you're actually not hearing. They somehow bypass certain things to where things are now audible, but they don't sound like how you're hearing me now. It sounds very metallic. Sound of metal. Good stuff. And I'm sure for a musician like him, that's even worse. So you go from having normal hearing to losing your hearing, not hearing anything at all, spending thousands of dollars selling your old home, losing your community, isolating yourself for 4 weeks just to put on some implants, and it's not what you wanted. It's not what you expected it to be. So all that money, all that time, the loss of everything just for more disappointments. That's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow. So next thing you know, Ruben, I don't know how he got the money, but he gets some money. He books a plane ticket to Paris because that is where Lou is, Lou and her daddy. We get his perspective of how things sound now with the cochlear implants, and it is jarring. And mind you, And mind you, I'm not deaf. I'm not in a deaf community. I don't have any outside disabilities. My opinion on this is very outside in, but I would just rather just to hear silence than to hear the clashing of everything. It was just, mm. Lou's out of the house. Ruben arrives to Richard's house. Richard is Lou's daddy. And Richard is very hospitable. He welcomes him in. He gives him some breakfast, fix some eggs, and he has a genuine conversation about Ruben. He asks him about his life. And then he also reveals to Ruben that he did not have the best feelings towards Ruben. He essentially blamed Ruben for taking his daughter away from her and keeping her away from him. And then he realized, that was some trauma dealing with, his wife taking his daughter in the first place. And I don't want to give the dad, because we don't know anything about him or his history, but there is a reason why that woman left with her child. And maybe some time apart, him growing with himself, learning himself, maybe he has changed, but there's something there. I don't have enough information to say what, but women typically don't just do that and then while they have a child that they love and care for. Unless, again, on the other side, there was something really wrong with Lou's mom. But something is there. But ultimately, Richard thanked Ruben for basically having his daughter returned back to him. So he thanked him for taking care of her and watching over her, which he technically did. She had a companion with her, and they were, for the most part, safe together. Later on, we see Lou coming back with her French bob, looking good or whatever, looking sophisticated. And the lovers reunite, and you could tell that they enjoyed seeing each other, but something about the energy was just different. And it's all in Lou's eyes. There's a birthday party for Richard, so there's a bunch of people at the house, food, drinks flowing, and Ruben looks completely out of place. In a crowd full of people, he seems more isolated than even when he was in the motel room. And you see Lou's keeping an eye on him, and you could feel the uncomfortableness. And I think because, again, Lou, I don't think was aware of it, I think having Ruben around at that point in time, because she looks good, she has community around her, she reconnected with her father. I think seeing Ruben reminded her of that stressful past that she had to deal with. 4 years they were in recovery. I think there was a sense of fear there. And while we're in this party, all we're hearing is everything from Ruben's perspective, and everything just sounds horrible. It just does. Richard then has his daughter Lou come and sing a French song from her childhood together, and you see them bond over music. Now, Lou seems like she's uncomfortable, but I think that uncomfortableness still comes from Ruben being in the room. When Ruben's watching on, he sings someone who was his person, someone who he made music with, now making music with her father. And again, it shows that he has no place there, which I think makes him feel insecure. Later on, Ruben and Lou are in her room, and they lay in bed together, and they share, a moment, they kiss. And Ruben brings up, going back to their old life, going back to America, getting in that RV, going on tour, and resuming a life that honestly no longer exists. And just having the two of them against the world, which again, I feel like Lou was a big shield, because you cannot have a partner who puts you on a pedestal. You cannot be someone's everything. That is not healthy. And that stresses Lou out, and she starts to scratch herself, which Ruben had commented earlier, oh, you stopped your scratching. Yeah, because she has a comfortable place with a father that's not expecting any labor from her, to just exist and explore her passions, versus before, when she's on the road, she was dependent on for everything. And when he watches her scratch and sees the look on her face, Ruben finally acknowledges that she had moved on. And instead of denying it, this time he chooses to face it, because I think he really does love Lou. I think they both really love each other. It's just, they're just different people now. And then he admits to Lou in tears. He's like, you saved my life. And she doesn't, I don't think, outwardly understand it, but she doesn't want to face it. She doesn't want to deny him. I think she has a hard time saying no. But again, her body speaks for her. No matter what she says or what she could say to protest, saying, yeah, we could go back on the road. She doesn't want to do that. She doesn't. She feels obligated to be there for him. And they hug, and she says, you saved my life too. And the 40 years they had together, all they had was each other. I think this is a form of closure for them, saying that you were such a significant you were a significant person in my life to help me through a very hard time. And they both knew that it was done. And even though that's healthy, that still doesn't mean it's not hard. Ruben, early in the morning, gets dressed, packs his stuff, and takes his leave while Lou slept. To say goodbye to her that was already done the previous night before. And he takes a moment to sit at a park to hear and observe everything around him. Then you hear the clashing of these loud church bells. And he finally had enough, and he took off the cochlear implants to just silence. And he sits there in silence, and he just sits. And that's how the movie ends. And even though we don't know the path he'll take, because he's practically broke again, he's still deaf, doesn't really have a community. The one thing that he has found, and I think he was looking his whole life for, was his peace. Finding your peace is not easy. And I think that's why this movie gets me so emotional, because I know how hard that is. But he was able in the end to do it, and that's all that matters. One moment, I need a little Henrietta time. So, what did we learn? There's so many nuggets, I think, and that's what shows just the brilliant writing and the acting. Just outstanding. I think one of the biggest takeaways is to always move forward. No matter how hard, no matter what you may miss. And sometimes we backtrack. Sometimes we backtrack multiple times. And what is that called? Patterns. And sometimes you don't even realize it until you made multiple backtrackings, multiple mistakes to be like, I've done this about 5 times and I'm noticing a pattern about myself. And when we acknowledge that, when we see that, when we know that, then we can start to move forward step by step. And I think it also shows how it's okay to look back, to acknowledge, to sit with your past, but know that the past is gone and we cannot live there. We cannot live in our past. We have to make a conscious choice every day to continue forward. And I think it also shows how letting go is essential. You have to unpack so you can receive more. When Ruben lost his hearing, he lost his girl, he lost his way of life, he lost his passion. But what did he gain? A community of people who loved and respected him, who wanted him around, who enjoyed him and his talents. And even though he gave that up to go back, he lost everything again. What did he find? His peace. He finally wasn't running away from himself, and he could sit and do the work and be with himself. And learning taking the time to sit with yourself, to get to know yourself. It's required. It is required if you want better for yourself, to know how to sit and face yourself, to sit with you, to hear yourself, to know yourself, to realize that you don't have to punish yourself for the things that happened in your past, to know there are good things waiting for you. Even if you lose the most precious things, there's still more. And that is essential for you to be here, to create, to explore, to live. And that's easier said than done. It really is. But if he can do it as a fictional character, and if I can do it as a real person, then you can do it. That is my take on The Sound of Metal. Beautifully done. Again, one of my favorite movies. Makes me cry like a little baby. How many? I have to edit so much in this video. Let me know if you guys enjoyed the film, if you found something that I may have missed, that you found that was profound, if you've dealt with any kinds of things that I've touched on that has affected you personally. Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear what you guys think. I thank you so much for watching. Please like this video, subscribe, make sure to eat well, drink well, rest well, move your body, and until next time. Come here, girl. Ciao. Ooh. you Amalric.